Having a little bit of fun, that's all. No big deal. Just killing the time now. We got a half hour until the debate starts. I'm going to start setting up some of this stuff. Got some Halloween music playing around. It is that time, folks. It is that time. I wish this keyboard was able Maybe I should have made like a pick. I should have got a pick or something like that, huh? Okay, I'm going to give it like 5 minutes because I do want to talk about this stuff real quick. I have to go to the because I'm calling out Indiana Capital Chronicle and every single media person. And I understand that I'm screaming into the void and whatever because they don't give a shit. But, you know, for freak's sake, come on. They need to do better than what they're doing right now. What about now? Check now. Is it better now? It's going to be interesting because I'm going to have to do what the debate is going to sound like. Oh, okay. Hey, everybody. What's going on? Oh, crap. Yeah, the photos that Cindy Star used was not flattering at all. That was I think I was one of the I don't tend to toot my horn too often, but I think I was one of the first people that noted that they need to do better. You know, you're louder now, but okay. Karina, Hopefully I'm saying that right. So if you remember Sarah Scheidel, that was the primary opponent against Justin Moed. And Mir Indy had done a write-up. Man, I wonder if I could find it. I was like, I've met Sarah in person. I actually invited her to the primary town forum in the Mars Hill Arts Center. Hey, what's going on, William? And I even called them out. It's like, you guys could have used a much better photo, because when I was making up the graphic for the town forum, actually, you know what? I'm just going to show it to you. I had showed it to Sarah to make sure. I wonder if I can find it. I have so many videos now. Hey, by the way, I don't know if anybody saw, but I have 69 subscribers now. Big W for me. That is the immaturity of me, by the way, in case anybody haven't noticed. I hope that one day I will meet all of you. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this was, I don't know if you can see it, but this was the graphic that I used. And I emailed Sarah multiple times. Yeah, by Trans Brother Sarah. Yep, that was the one. And I talked to him. I mean, very tall. She's very tall, and very nice though. And it was interesting because what I liked about Sarah is that she hasn't been in the sector long enough, and after we got done with our town forum, she was like, hey, I hope that you didn't take anything personally with any of the digs. I was like, no, because like I've had my house doxxed plenty of times. People have posted pictures of my house on Twitter a ton of times, trying to scare me or whatever. Like, listen, I was around in 2020. None of this stuff scares me. Plus, I have a bunch of booby traps around my house, and I have a stream in my backyard. So, listen, nothing's really terrifying to me. Hopefully I can get the chat going. So, is it working? All right, yeah. So it was. So I made sure that and I'm hoping Sarah's doing well. It was a 70-30, but here was the point, and this is what I hope that Sarah gathered all of this. Sarah made a. Yeah, exactly. Sarah made a huge impact in the Democrat Party, and here's why. Unless you've been into it like I have, you know who the names are. So if you knew or didn't know, Sarah almost tried to get kicked off the ticket by the Democrat Party, because Sarah had just moved from one place to another, and your registration has to be within a year. And I think the year was from the voting date, the actual general election, not the primary. So this is where it gets interesting, and I'm going to do a video on this on my, surprise October surprise, this very soon, within a couple of days. And Bose McKinney Evans were the people that went to the election board and tried to get Sarah off the ticket. Well, there were two people that were against Sarah. Gregory Hahn, who is a major Democrat donor, like gives thousands and thousands of dollars to Democrat candidates. Plus, he's the chair of the Indigo board. The other person was Allie Bartlett. Now, Allie Bartlett is a Republican. And how do I know this? Well, because she's an elected precinct committeeman for the Republican Party. And what was Allie Bartlett doing during the primary? Helping Justin Moed. And yes, I have proof. And yes, she told me that she was helping him because of Sarah Scheidel. So Justin knew that this whole thing was happening. Justin asked for help from Bose McKinney Evans, and then they stepped up to the plate. And why? Because Bose McKinney Evans, or Bose Public Affairs, which is the name of the lobbyist group, they gave money to Justin Moed. So And I was actually hoping to see Sarah at the Rainbow Chamber of Commerce, which is the LGBTQ like commerce, kind of like Indie Chamber does, but it's Rainbow Chamber of Commerce. Very nice people. Talked to a lot of great people. I am such a cute and sweet little guy that nobody knew that I was running as a Republican. So this is what I wanted to talk about. This is where I think that this is why I do not trust the media. Now, for those who don't know, Indiana Capital Chronicle. I know, I'm already losing. This is where I would have edited. Indiana Capital Chronicle was born from a leftist think tank in D.C. Then was Indiana State Affairs. Same, cut from the same cloth. Very biased, even though they pretend that they're not biased, just like Adam Bren. So they came out with their 2024 voter guide today, and I was like, this can't be finished. And then they actually posted it, and I got an email saying it too. Look at all the people that they've missed. It goes from 39 to 53. And I haven't checked, which I really need to check, are the ones that they missed, are they elections that do not have an opponent? Because I can tell you what, I have an opponent. Justin Moet has an opponent. Who's my opponent? Marco Renatzelberger. He has an opponent. Libby Glass has an opponent against Robin Shackelford. Blake Johnson has an opponent with Joseph Bortka. So, actually, let me do this. I want to show you. So let's just go through this thing though. And this is how lazy they are. It's like, according to her campaign biography, or their campaign website primarily focused on blah blah blah. I was like, so you're telling me that you didn't even interview these people? You've had 5 months to interview these people and you didn't do it. I mean, it's just bananas to me of how lazy they are, and this is why I keep saying that you can't trust them. Hey, do me hold on. Check this out. Look at that. Already in the top 3. Justin Moet email, Justin Moet, Sydney Leathers. Hey, if anybody wants to look into that, I encourage you to. You're going to love what you find. But let's just look at the Ballotpedia. This is the ultimate stress test too, by the way, for what I got going on right now. Hopefully I can find it. Maybe this one. So anyway, I think it's BS. Plus, like, the way that they arranged it, maybe I'm just being too picky about it. Plus, oh yeah, by the way, I also have a meet and greet tonight at 9 o'clock. I have been doing these bi-monthly. Tonight's one is at Western Bowl over on Washington, West Side. Hey, I did really well. So for you newcomers out there, I have them bi-monthly. And the very first one of the month, I go to Western Bowl, which is on Washington. And then for the last Wednesday of the month, I go to Expo Bowl, which is off of Emerson and 465, which technically it's Beach Grove. I thought it was Indianapolis address, but it's not. But maybe I'm just being too picky on this stuff because I like it nice and neat. But I was wondering, it's like, why do they have Mitch Gorth and Yvonne, Jim Lucas and Trish? Okay. Those are the incumbents. But then I look at Victoria Garcia Wilburn. She's on the bottom, but she's the incumbent. And same thing with, where's John at? With John Schmitz. Like, why is he last? As like and then look at this. They had the Libertarian first on here. Like, it's just no order. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being petty about it, but I like it nice and clean. I would put the incumbent on there, obviously, first. But for also Victoria Garcia Wilburn, let me tell you a quick story about her. So last year, I was running for city council, and she was running in 2022. She was running for state rep, and then in 23 last year, I was running for city council. Well, she had put out there about, oh, we need to make sure that we're constantly funding public education, yada yada yada, and someone had messaged me and said, hey, this person, Victoria's kids go to a private school. And I was like, what? I was like, really? So I was like, what are you talking about? You send your kids to a private school. And I didn't know, he proved it to me, but he showed me pictures, but I never posted them because I'm not a scumbag like that. So that's all I said. And then, obviously her husband shows up and says, hey, keyboard warrior, let's meet up, huh? Let's not have this talk over there. I'm like, well, first off, sir, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the candidate who's going to waste more of my tax dollars. So fast forward to February of 2023 when I'm running for city council. The week that I put my paperwork in, I get a call from the Indiana Capitol Police Department. And they said I was posting pictures of her kids. I was posting pictures of her kids' medical data, where they lived, and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, that actually never happened. And he goes, well, that's what we're trying to figure out because we can't find anything. And I go, yeah, because it never happened. And he goes, well, there's only one tweet that something that you had posted, but it was deleted. And I said, yeah, I was asked to delete all of my tweets on that page because I was running for city council, so I did it. He's like, okay. So he goes, so there's nothing that I have to worry about, right? You're like, you're not going to do anything? And I go, no. In fact, I'm not even going to say anything to her, which I didn't. I didn't say any. I was like, I wasn't going to talk to her or criticize her anymore for the rest of the year because I was running for council. And then now here we are. As I can now I get my chance to criticize her, which I've been doing for the past couple of months. Well, here's the part that people don't know. She accused somebody else. She thought I was somebody else, and then when she found out that it wasn't, she called him up and was apologizing to him, like craziness to it. So very funny stuff. This is what I wish people understood when they go into politics. Like, it's just amazing what will happen in such a short amount of time. And this is why I was so happy that Moed had a primary opponent. And I was especially happy for Sarah. Sarah scared the Democrat Party, where they exposed themselves of kind of like how corrupt they are. The Uniparty, the deep state. Whenever you hear deep state, it is the Uniparty. They are the same thing. So, yeah, Victoria was crying and everything. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get you in trouble. Your forgiveness, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, just, let's talk about it sometime. So, yeah. But Sarah helped expose a lot of the Uniparty stuff, which I will talk about in a future video, and then kind of make it my October surprise. So anyway, the Indianapolis Foundation. There was an article put out of like the Indianapolis Foundation is going to be giving all these grants out, and so I started looking into it. Well, I didn't know that the foundation was part of CICF, and CICF, which is the Central Indiana Community Foundation, the same place that Leroy Robinson works at too, who was the Indianapolis councilman, I think for District 2. But so I was like, oh, that's nice. But I was like, as all nonprofits and charities, we know that something's amuck. I do not trust nonprofits. I do not trust charities. They're always for something else. So I was wondering how much of government grants did they get? And I think it was at like $9 million or something. But let's look at what their president and CEO makes. Over $200,000, of course. Look at all these people making all that money. Hold on, I want to put myself real quick. There we go. And government grants, $9.5 million. And all of the contributions, gifts, grants, and similar amounts. But here was the interesting part. This is what I'm always wondering about. who is getting the money? If you're granting it out, are you able to share of who is getting the money? And I started going through some of this yesterday, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be going live. Look at all the people that are getting that grant money. Now, it's not like, oh, you know, it's all the 9 million, but we don't know. It's still taxpayer money. So the taxpayers give this money, this $9.5 million to this grant, and then they shell it out to other places. But let's look at some of the places. Horizon House is getting $1.1 million. I got them confused the other day. The Public Library Fund, $1 million. For some reason, a Colorado Railroad Museum is getting $500,000, and then the Cheyenne Depot Museum is getting almost $500,000. Eskenazi, $475. There was a couple other ones too that I wanted to look at. Martin University, $275. The Rotary Foundation, where all the elites are hanging out. Brookside Community Development, which is basically like a neighborhood thing. There was another one I forgot. Marion University, $223. This one, PGA Tour, First Tee Foundation. Lutheran Child and Family Services. There is one that's in my Crown Community Development Corporation. Wayne Township Education Foundation, $100,000, and it's up to them of 2022. This is 2022 numbers, so it's probably more now. Gleaners Food Bank, yeah, that one's fine. I don't have a problem with that one. There was one in Garfield Park neighborhood, and I was like, oh, okay. And there's Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. There it is, $54,000. Discretion of the organization too. Oh, can you see that? Recycle Force, $53,000. And that one is to be used at the organization's discretion. But here's my point. Yeah, Friends of Garfield Park, $48,000. But here's my point, is that this is how you keep people in line. It's like, you're going to play ball or you're not going to get our money. So, they're all friends with each other. And they say, hey, this person's doing some really good work. This person would help you get a grant. These are the kind of people that we want around in here. This is how this uniparty handshakes and hand job thing works. So it is very frustrating, and I don't like it. But I wanted to point it out to you only because of the absolute corruption of what is going on. All right. I think... Okay, so... I'm hoping that YouTube has it. So there's also one tomorrow, which I didn't know about, Fox 59. Okay, so they're not going to have it, from what it looks like. The gubernatorial. Anyway, all right, let's get you out. We're going to do this. Oh. Now, apparently, it's going to be on here.
Try to do a campaign event or do a online virtual event.
I think it's really important.
Today, I took off so that I could not just do some interviews, pleasure meeting, but also
checkity check.
Most small business owners.
And on this day, Rainwater was joined in Indy by his own party's candidate for president, Chase Oliver.
I would love to earn your vote.
While both libertarians agree on party platforms like enacting major tax cuts and legalizing cannabis, they share different views on abortion. While Oliver thinks it should be legal nationwide, Rainwater disagrees.
What's the libertarian perspective? What's your perspective on reproductive reproductive rights. That's been a
There's
big
like
issue
a
this year as
14-second
Well,
delay.
I've always said I'm a pro-life libertarian because
And,
if we should be
that's a little
protecting
distracting.
anyone, it would be somebody who cannot protect themselves.
What's your vision if you're elected governor?
Yeah,
What would you want to see our state do?
I
And
think
what
the
would you want to
neighborhood
accomplish?
pantries are
Well, I
probably
think
much more important.
if I could put
than
it all
Gleaner.
under one umbrella,
But a lot of people
It-
will say, like,
is that-
Gleaners is the choice for me. But, I think the neighborhoods, we should be taking care of the neighborhoods. And then when they need extra help, you can, get asked for grants. There's plenty of people for that. All right, so hopefully that will stay there. Yeah, what would the nation do without our money pit, though? Exactly. It's not our money, it's their money. Alrighty. Right. There's that. Yeah, I saw Chase Oliver at the Rainbow Chamber of Commerce. I kind of like hype mogged him a little bit. Nice guy though, but you're right. I don't think and this is what some of the libertarians in Marion County said too, that they have like kind of liked him a little bit more, but that was one of their big criticisms of him. It's like he just did not understand the libertarian ideology. Very nice guy though. He reminds me of Jack from what is that? What is that show? Just Jack. I know. Everybody knows except for me. I forgot the name of the show though. All right, I'm gonna be right back.
Invite you to be our guest at Outlaws Steak and Spirits. Experience live music, good drinks, and a well-rounded menu to satisfy everyone. Watch Indie Now Thursday morning to dine out and save half.
Eligible Hoosiers, it's almost Election Day and you need to vote. But first, you need to register to vote. Online registration is fast and easy. Simply enter your name and driver's license or ID number, confirm you're eligible to vote, and that's it. Just 2 steps in less than 2 minutes. Head to indianavoters.com or scan the QR code to register now. This message is sponsored by the Office of the Indiana Secretary of State.
Election education, the hands-on resources available for teachers to show students how our election process works.
And meteorologist Jim O'Brien tracking the weather, finding out when we'll see drier skies, all this week.
More news from more trusted reporters in more places to keep you more informed. Fox 59 News.
A new leader is about to take over Indiana's highest office. 2 candidates stand ready to forge the future for Hoosiers. Republican Senator Mike Braun and a former education leader, Democrat Jennifer McCormick. Tonight, they go head-to-head. on the issues you want to hear about. It's debate night in Indiana in the race for governor.
Broadcasting from the Circle City, Indianapolis, is your home for tonight's debate in the race for governor. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Dan Spears.
I'm Birchelle Edmay. We're your moderators for this evening's debate. Right here inside of our studios on the northwest side of Indianapolis, we're hosting the Republican and Democratic candidates hoping to lead our state. And we're broadcasting live on air and online from our Indiana Next Star media stations and other partners from Evansville to Fort Wayne and Terre Haute to South Bend. Now, before we do start, let's review the rules.
Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer a question that's directed to them. If a follow-up or rebuttal is needed, the candidate will get 30 seconds to respond, another 15 seconds if the moderators determine that clarification is needed. And when their time is up, you'll hear the sound of a bell like this.
We also invite you to follow along, engage with us as we go through this debate. You can do so using the hashtag #INGOVdebate. We'll also be sharing some more information supporting our questions. We now want to welcome both of the candidates who met our agreed upon threshold based on fundraising and polling to be with us here this evening. And with the rules set, we now want to begin the debate with the first question.
Indiana's next governor will be one of the highest paid in the country, receiving a 65% pay increase compared to what Governor Holcomb is making now, while the average worker in Indiana saw only a 5% pay increase in 2024. You have a proposal out just today, Mr. Braun. So what's your plan to help increase wages to help Hoosiers keep up with inflation, and how do you actually make it happen? 60 seconds to you.
So I'm proud of the record I had as a Main Street entrepreneur. I moved back to my hometown many years ago. My wife has had her own business, 505 Main Street, 46 years, and started with one other employee, now has 11, 12, 13 employees, pays a high wage. I was always proud of my business because I see what some of the public CEOs make, and sometimes you're talking about 100, 150 times the average worker's pay, not uncommon to be 30 or 40 times. I always took pride on making sure that my key employees were getting compensated well, had good benefits, and to be honest, I think the highest paycheck I got is when I went to the U.S. Senate. I reinvested every penny into that business, made sure we didn't have turnover by investing in our employees, and when you do that, good things happen. You don't have turnover.
So just to follow up here, what is your plan specifically to incentivize businesses to raise wages on their own? 30 seconds here.
It's not going to be hard to do that because I did it through practical experience. So we need to make sure that we bring into the state that stratum of wages through our economic development that's going to pay that highest wage. We need to make sure we fertilize the field of entrepreneurs because they oftentimes are that next best business that grow wages and opportunities for hardworking Hoosiers.
Ms. McCormick, 60 seconds to you. How will you raise wages in Indiana?
Yes, I will get to that question. But first of all, I am Jennifer McCormick. I am a fifth-generation farm family. I am also a teacher. I am a businesswoman, and I was your last elected state superintendent of public instruction as a Republican. I am a wife, and I am a proud mom. Also, too, I am a Hoosier, and I'm proud of that. Sure. And I know, just like many of you, we deserve a governor we can trust and who we can like, one we can bring common sense and restore balance, but also, too, someone who will fight for our freedoms, and I will do that for all Hoosiers. As far as the question goes, I am very proud we released our common sense economic development plan, which included ways to get down utility costs, which included ways to get down healthcare costs and increase our talent pool of workers in order to attract and retain good paying jobs and get those wages up. So what we did is we took an approach to make it business friendly, but also make it Hoosier friendly, and to make sure that Hoosiers are included in the plan. And again, it goes back to getting those utility costs down for everyone and also health care costs.
Just to follow up here in 30 seconds, would you consider raising Indiana's minimum wage?
Absolutely. I know the Democrats have tried that several times at the State House unsuccessfully, but it's time. But I'll be honest with you, even if we raise it, it becomes what is is that threshold? You know, it's $15 an hour really doesn't go very far right now. So it gets back to, it's a much bigger conversation than that.
And Mr. Braun, 30 seconds to you quickly. Would you consider raising the minimum wage in our state?
No.
I would consider it, but what I would be mostly for is making sure that we've got the right mix of businesses from small, medium, and large, and knowing what economic development
Ron
is
was a
about.
Democrat before.
I did that for 37 years in the real world, signing the front side of a paycheck. I think it'll be easy for me to figure out how to do that.
Dear Show?
We just mentioned the next governor's pay raise, and that was passed in the legislative session without Hoosier voters' input. And we've heard from so many of our viewers who are upset that they really feel
exactly what I thought of.
on
It's working
major
out
state
so well
policy
for
issues,
California.
things like legalizing marijuana or abortion access. So first to you, Ms. McCormick, would you support efforts to send these public issues directly to voters on the ballot? 30 seconds for you.
Absolutely. We have a common sense ethics plan that includes making sure Hoosiers have a voice, and that is absolutely part of it, to make sure that we fight for ballot initiatives so the majority of Hoosiers can make those decisions that we're seeing being made by a very, very small minority of Hoosiers. Also, that ethics plan makes sure that we are being transparent and held accountable.
Mr. Braun, we have a question now to you. Would you support ballot referendums in your administration? 30 seconds.
So we currently don't have that. And to me, the best way you're going to see what Hoosiers want, visit them. For the nearly 6 years I've been in the Senate, I visit every county, all 92 of them, have 4 left this year. And you learn a lot. If the legislature, if there was an upswell for it, I would not rule it out. But the best way to keep your pulse on what's going on, talk to Hoosiers. I've got a track record where I've done that now for 6 years and will continue to do that as the next governor.
I want to stay connected to the topic we were talking about because abortion and state ballot referendums often go hand in hand. It also ranked as one of the top concerns we heard from viewers. Recently, former President Trump weighed in on this issue, pointing back to state rights as well as voter voices on the matter. Here's what he had to say in a Fox News interview.
You need more time than 6 weeks. I've disagreed with that right from the early primaries. When I heard about it, I disagreed with it.
Mr. Braun, if he's saying that a 6-week ban is too short, Indiana's abortion law is more restrictive than the leader of your party supports, would you back any changes or any further exceptions to Indiana's abortion law?
So we're a right to life state, and that sanctity of life gets weighed against the counterpoint. And when our legislature took it on, they talked to their constituents, to Hoosiers, and it's withstood the courts weighing in. So it is a bill that sanctifies life. We're a state that does that with reasonable exceptions, and I think the people have spoken, the legislators listened, and we got a bill that seems to be working for Hoosiers.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Let's turn this now to you, Ms. McCormick. You've promised to overturn the state's abortion ban if elected.
Where's
as
the
a
line
Democrat
at,
who most likely will
McCormick?
be working alongside a Republican supermajority in the state house, how would you overturn the law and get bipartisan support to do so? And you have 60 seconds
I don't know
for
how
that.
any elected official could say it's working because we have women already dying in Indiana, and we have stories being told every day and are being reported on. I'm the only person on the stage who's been pregnant. I'm the only person on the stage who's
Wait
given
a
birth.
minute.
I'm the only person on this stage who is a mom, and I understand firsthand the complexities associated with pregnancy. And I trust women. I trust healthcare providers. I believe in the standards that were set by Roe. It's time we return that. There is too much at stake. I know my opponent said that that he thought we got it right. And when you make comments like that, we put a lot of women's lives at risk. It's complex. I'm also concerned about IVF and birth control, as I know a lot of people say it's not at risk. When you leave that up to the states, we have seen time and time again that it has become at risk. We have plenty of examples to point to. Again, I trust women, and there are a lot of Hoosiers who are with me on this issue.
And so you've spoken here about your stance, but specifically the question was about how you would overturn the law. So what steps would you take? 15 seconds to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything we can do with our boards and our commissions and our agencies, working with the General Assembly as well, but anything we can do under our authority, and we will look at every step we can take in order to work toward that.
Ms. McCormick, thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got a lot of topics to get to tonight, including a number dealing with the economy. And one area where Hoosiers have been hardest hit is with housing. The high federal interest rates brought up mortgage payments. Zillow reports that rent prices have gone up by as much as 30% year over year here in Indiana. Ms. McCormick, you've suggested incentivizing affordable housing and ensuring better protections for renters. What are those incentives, and how would your overall policies
Karina?
help
Did I
Hoosiers
say that? Am I
afford a
saying
place
that
to
right,
live?
Karina?
60 seconds.
Yeah, well, as I've traveled the state, I've learned from a lot of people, whether they're homeowners or renters, that first of all, they're trying to stay in where they are already located, and that goes back to property taxes. We put out a common sense property tax relief plan that will hopefully help Hoosiers stay in place. My plan was successfully received. Mr. Braun had to go back a few times and do 2.0, but our plan really does help keep Hoosiers in their household. In addition, those incentives look like they could do fair lending practices, making sure that we're doing some small grants to keep first-time homeowners into or get them into homes. But there's so much that work that needs to be done in that space of home ownership. You know, there's so much more that goes with that. When you stay in one place, you also have more stability in your workforce. You have more stability in our education, and you have healthier people. So the housing piece, we definitely need to solve those issues.
Mr. Braun, you've pointed to government support for multifamily housing and collaborations with local builders. How would your policies help Hoosiers afford a place to live? 60 seconds to you on this question.
Well, number one, let's look at why it started in the first place.
Come on.
Her party
promoted
Bidenomics, the inflation that we got that took assessed values through the roof. We didn't have that up until just recently. You got to go back 40 years. It would have been close to when I was starting a business. We never had inflation that bad. And when you do that, it's going to throw everything out of kilter. And in the case of property taxes, no one spoke up until I did. I was the first to lay out a property tax plan. And it's very simple.
I got you.
You should not grow taxes faster than the ability of a Hoosier to pay for it. And if we're not for home ownership,
I gotta check Twitter.
especially among young couples and the elderly that suffer the most with actually paying that bill, and we don't give some security to folks that it's not going to increase in the future, we put a cap on it so it can't do it on the bill because it wasn't working the way it was. I'm proud of it.
Okay,
Since he addressed my party, can I?
15 seconds here to respond, yeah.
So I agree with some of the things Mr. Braun said about, you know, you got to keep pace with that. But under 20 years of one-party rule, and that is Republicans, your party, sir, that has gotten us to the place we are with property taxes being out of control.
Let's stay on this topic of property taxes here, Mr. Braun. One Ball State economist called your plan.
You talk about Mike Hicks. Mike Hicks is a dope
catastrophe for local governments and schools.
And he needs
that
to
rely
say
on
that. Mike Hicks is trying to keep his job at Ball
communities
State.
may have to make the case for additional projects. Does that mean cities would need to take some of these funding issues directly to the voters if they want to build a new park or a new fire station? 60 seconds.
There's no school board member or even administrator or local government official that will ever say that you should grow revenue faster than the ability for a
of course, I always
taxpayer
want
to pay it.
a firefight.
I was on a school board for 10 years, served on the education committee 1 year of the 3 years in the State House, and have been on health, education, labor, and pensions out east. So we need to make sure, because local government and school districts are the most important part of our state's government and education. What I'm doing is just simply saying, don't ask the taxpayers for more than what they can afford to do. Don't have policies that are going to kick them out of their homes when we know that it's important for young and old couples and everyone in between. And I'll find ways, if there's more need for revenue, you can do it through a referendum. If you need more, you can use local income taxes, but do it transparently. Don't put a big increase on the shoulders of Hoosiers without them knowing it.
Ms. McCormick, let's talk about the analysis on your property tax proposal, which some analysts say could have a similar impact on local governments, costing as much as $175 million in lost revenue, according to some forecasts. You've suggested making that up by pulling from the state's surplus. How sustainable is that solution? Would that ultimately impact other sections of the state's budget? 60 seconds to you as well.
Yeah, we've had a great response from our plan. People understood where we were going with it. We polled in a bipartisan fashion. We polled language from Republicans and language bill language from legislation that had been introduced, and also from Democrats. And so in a bipartisan fashion, we pulled the best of the best and put it together. It would have a savings of around $600 million. The fiscal's there, the language there, it's ready day one. It would save all Hoosiers in their property taxes, but it would also protect that local level. I don't want to defund our schools. I don't want to defund our police. I certainly don't want to defund our fire and our parks and our libraries. So ours was a really well-received plan because it offers that relief, but it protects the local level, which is incredibly important.
Let's stay on the topic of schools here, Gershel.
Yes, you just mentioned some of the funding there for education.
Listen,
we know Hoosier
Wayne
students
Township
have been seeing
superintendent
lower
makes
test scores
$300,000
and also
a
somewhat
year.
stalled education outcomes
That's
for
all I need to
almost a
say.
decade now. Both of your campaigns have suggested raising teacher wages as part of your education plan to address some of the learning gaps that we're really seeing. Ms. McCormick, you propose starting that teacher salary now at $60,000. Where would the money come from for this higher teacher pay? You have 60 seconds for that.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so obviously education is one of my priorities. If we can't get education right, we can't get the economy right. So everything's based on getting that piece of it where we need it. We need a well-trained and educated workforce and a highly skilled and healthy consumer as well. So the education piece obviously is a passion for me, but we got to start with childcare, universal pre-K, get the K-12 piece right, and then the post-high school. Also, too, we do need to pay our teachers the way their non-educator peers are being paid, or we're never going to attract them. There are 3,300 educator openings today. We will never fill them. School is happening. It completely impacts our communities, our state, and honestly across the nation. When I was in office, Indiana was ranked 35th in the nation under 20 years of Republican implemented policy. I was responsible to implement a lot of bad policy. Since I left, we have fallen to 41st. So we're going in the wrong direction. I made my concerns heard when I was in office. I will continue to do that because I'll champion for kids.
And so how do you pay for that, though? The
That's
$60,000
the
that
question.
you're proposing here for teachers to fill some of the gaps and certainly increase the education outcomes.
Sure.
We'll give you 15 seconds for that
Yeah, the
clarification.
majority of the funding comes from the funding formula, which is state dollars. And $1.6 billion right now flows away from public education into privatization. So pausing that program will give us the monies that we need and our teachers deserve.
Mr. Braun, I want to turn now to you with this same question. You've also, again, proposed higher salaries for our teachers without giving a number. How much would you raise teacher pay to, and how would you fund that? 60 seconds for that response.
So that's going to be very simple. If you look at what we invest in a classroom, building, utilities, maintenance, upkeep, including teacher pay, it's about $245,000 per classroom. That means over time, we have lost sight of what is most important. My sister was a 5th grade school teacher for her career, and I know what's important. She'll keep me straight on that. I served on our school board for 10 years. If you're putting that much into buildings, in maintenance, in upkeep, and you're not getting the most important thing right, which is teacher pay and benefits, to me, $60,000 is way too modest. That's nothing more than what we've done over the last 3 years of stepping it up about $1,500 a year. It's got to be competitive with some of the best wages we pay in the state, and you do it by running things more efficiently, not putting money into the buildings and the operations into the classroom.
So you just said 60K is too modest. You want to be competitive. So for your sister, who was a 5th grade teacher, or for any others who are watching right now, what can they expect? What is the number that you would raise teacher pay to?
So here's what I'll do. I'll look at what peer states are paying, what the best states are doing across this country that are getting that right mix, and I will aspire to do that. And I can tell you, there's going to be plenty of room to end up paying for it by running a government more efficiently and weighing in on the cost of a classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Well, you both have touched on this a bit outside of teacher pay, that there are other aspects, other plans that you might use to certainly help our classrooms and keeping teachers in the classroom as well. How will your administration improve the education quality and the outcomes for Hoosier students? We'll start first with you. 30 seconds, Ms. McCormick.
Yeah, so when I was our state superintendent, I was very proud. We have a national leader in school safety, so that is already established and well known across the nation. We've still got room to grow, but that was our #1 priority, is the safety and security, which means buildings and construction and making sure our kids are safe, but also too making sure that we're doing our due diligence in all programming prior to when they come into school, from that child care to pre-K on to K-12 and post high school.
And is there one particular policy now voters can expect from you when it comes to improving those outcomes outside of the security for the buildings? I'll give you 15 seconds.
Absolutely. The investment in early child care is a huge investment into what we want to accomplish in education. That I know it's expensive, but it's a huge investment, and our return on that investment is unquestionable.
Mr. Braun, we turn the question similarly to you here. How will your education plan directly help students? 60 seconds for your response.
So it's going to be very clear there. I'm going to make sure that teachers are getting what their resources are they need to choose it as an occupation. I'm also going to make sure that parents are the main stakeholders in their own kids' education. I'm a big believer, because I've seen it in the real world. If you don't have competition and choice, you're going to be pigeonholed into something that, if that's the only thing you've got, what do you measure it against? So parents are clamoring for options and choices that you don't have with a one-size-fits-all. And thank goodness we've gone that direction, because you'd be in some places where you had no options. And all I can tell you is, when you want to be a monopoly, you're generally trying to hide poor performance, and you don't want to compete.
Education does start with parents.
Choice
Parents need to
and
be doing their
competition
job.
works in anything, including healthcare, which we'll talk about a little later, but certainly in education.
We will get to that topic. Thank you, Mr. Braun and Ms. McCormick. Well, for our next question now, we get some help from Mike Tank. He's here at our station, WTWO in Terre Haute.
Mike from Terre Haute. What's going on,
Utility
folks?
companies serving Hoosiers like CenterPoint Energy and others across the state have raised utility rates, and many Hoosiers tell us it's more than they can afford. What will your administration do to bring these prices under control?
So first, we turn to you, Mr. Braun. What is your plan to help Hoosiers afford the utilities that they certainly need to survive? We'll give you 1 minute for that response.
So that's become an issue really somewhat recently. As recently as 2 years ago, there was flat demand for electricity. Now every business that wants to come into the state needs, in many cases, a gigawatt of electricity. We only produce 20 gigawatts currently. And again, part of our issue when we were 5th or 6th least expensive in the country, we were relying mostly on coal. I'm for the cleanest, least expensive fuel in the long run. But we shut down our coal fleet too early, and now we're up to being 33rd to 35th in terms of cost of electricity. That's going to be bad for economic development, and it's going to make it hard for us to be attractive to the businesses that use a lot of electricity that want to come into our state. Again, those are decisions that utility companies may be listening too much to things out east that got us in that predicament. I'll make sure to weigh in on it for sure.
I don't quite think I heard the plan, though, to keep those utilities affordable for Hoosiers. So in 15 seconds, could you tell us what that would look like under your administration?
So that would be, don't prematurely shut down your base load currently. Find what the least expensive costs are of electricity in the short run, and make sure you're doing it in a way that's going to be entrepreneurial and not dictated from the federal government to us.
Thank you, Mr. Braun.
Let's
turn now to you, Ms. McCormick.
That's
You've
all
laid
you
out
had
a
to
plan
say.
to cap rates and put some more oversight over utility companies, but that's also received some pushback, especially concerning the bottom line of these utility companies. So what's your response to that criticism of your plan? 60 seconds.
Our plan is solid. So we rolled out a common sense utility plan that really got to the root of IURC, which is the commission that allows these rate increases at a pace that we've not seen in some time. So making sure that we are putting people on that board that are ratepayer friendly versus utility company friendly. Also re-incentivizing one-to-one net metering. So people are looking at renewable energy and having a way to do that. Also, we look at Mitch Daniels' energy savings plan where he incentivized a lot of that. And obviously it was done away with when he left office, but we can bring some of that back. So bringing people to the table that have a lot of great ideas about getting these costs down. But the first step is the IURC, which again is that commission in order to bring those costs down. The other piece of it I want to mention on school choice, I cannot leave this. Indiana school choice program is 100% about school choice and not about parent choice. It's about schools choosing, not parents choosing.
Thank you both. We'll turn now to Dan for our next topic.
Mr. Braun, just this week, your campaign put out an ad that included a digitally manipulated image of your opponent. This is what that image looked like in your ad in the initial version, altering what was seen on these signs in the background of a McCormick campaign event. The ad was initially sent to local TV stations without a
funny.
disclaimer that
If
the
anybody
images were
fell for
altered.
that, then they're
The
a dope
campaign
and
sent
they
out
shouldn't be
subsequent
voting.
versions of this, correcting to add the disclaimer and bring the ad in line with the state's new law, along with another new version of the ad. But even with the disclaimer, the ad still presented an image that never happened in real life. Going beyond this specific campaign spot, are you comfortable with your campaign fabricating images of this nature? 1 minute on this question.
Well, that was amplifying a point, and the only misstep there was that you didn't disclaim it. And that's a recent law that just passed in Indiana. When I saw that, I immediately corrected it. No campaign's going to be perfect, but you do need to get at the underlying substance. And that ad was to point out that my opponent is embracing some of the liberal policies. I don't know that Hoosiers are quite ready for that. You know, when you've been proud of the fact that you voted for Hillary Clinton, I think when she was a Republican back then, and you support the Biden-Harris program that's given us a sugar high economy and inflation, and when you recommend joining a environmental alliance, a climate alliance that espouses those things, I think you either need to say you're for it or against it, because I don't think Hoosiers are ready for that.
Ms. McCormick, I'll give you 60 seconds to respond here. And do you plan to file suit over this?
Well, first of all, I think that response was just so rich. When you're blaming someone else for not having a disclaimer on an ad that is clearly from your campaign. First of all, it's very disheartening to see something that is misleading Hoosiers. We deserve better than that from our elected officials, particularly a sitting senator. So I have never mentioned
politics
stoves,
is a nasty
and
game. That's all I can say.
And
Wait
so,
until the
there
negative
were just a lot
mailers
of
come about
pieces
me.
of that were unfortunate, and it didn't get taken down immediately. The same week, I'm called a Jezebel spirit by the ticket.
By
And
Micah.
when I was an elementary principal, I learned what you do is you admit when you get something wrong and you own it and you apologize. The third step would be to call home. I'm not calling home. But step 1 and 2 can certainly be done from an adult. And so I'm happy to wait on that apology, but it was very misleading. It was very, very, it was unnecessary, and it's quite frustrating to see that happen in politics. We deserve better than that.
That's how politics works. I'll give you an example after this.
Mr. Brown, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond here on this. And
we
the comments
immediately
from your
responded to that and did it as quickly as you can to take it off. And the point is still there. And if you want to espouse those policies, be clear about it. Have your website say you're not for that. And my opponent was the first one that put contrast advertising out there on the issue of abortion. And that had manipulation to it as well. So that is something that if you do it, which that happened, and we took it down immediately, and that's, to me, closes the case.
Ms. McCormick, 30 seconds to you hear the Braun campaign accusing your team of manipulating images.
Yeah, we didn't
well.
manipulate anything. We used his voice and his message. It was not manipulated. Using artificial intelligence to put other words on and purposely mislead is a whole other ballgame. And again, we never even addressed your ticket referring to me as a Jezebel spirit, which is beyond the Hoosier values. That is why people are tired of extremism.
Right now?
And we'll be talking about your running mates and some other big issues in this race for governor coming up here in just a few minutes.
But right now, we do need to take a quick break, so we'll be right back with, of course, more issues and more answers for the candidates.
Oh, man, Shreve better be careful. All right, break time. Break time. All right, so I'm not usually one to talk too much crap, but I just saw this from Shreve's thing. Should I do it? No. Just go to his Facebook. I don't want to be mean. Let's see. What was I looking for? I was looking for something. So Yvonne Metcalf had a negative mailer about her from, there it is. From Common Sense Jezebel. Oh, fiery but mostly peaceful Jezebel. So Yvonne Metcalf had a negative mailer from Mitch Gore. 2 of them, actually. This one, and this was a 4-fold, and I made a video about it on my campaign Facebook because Common because I'm like, hey, you know, Yvonne's a really nice gal. I don't know what she did to deserve this, but I don't know how much of this stuff is taken out of context. Are we back already?
Debate night here in Indiana. We've already covered a lot of ground in the last half hour with our candidates, Jennifer McCormick and Mike Braun. But we still have more to go here with about 30 minutes, so we'll get right into it.
All right,
Mr. Braun, former President Trump's endorsement of your campaign was a prominent part of your messaging in the primary, but his name has largely been absent from your advertisements during the general election race. Are you still on board with your party's candidate this year, his approach and his platform as he runs for re-election in 2024? 1 minute here.
Definitely, and this will be an easy one because national races impact down ballot races. And I'd ask Hoosiers, when were you better off? Under the Trump administration or with Bidenomics, inflation, sugar high economy, open border? Almost all of those issues were not issues, including being entangled in a lot of foreign escapades. If you look back to that, that looks pretty good compared to what we have now. Not to mention that we've grown the federal government by 25% under Biden-Harris, my opponent's party, and we're borrowing at the tune of now $1 trillion every 6 months. And to show you how much that party has grown government, it was half that just 6 years ago. We need something better than government growing when you're touting jobs.
Your Senate colleague, Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance, faced a common question about President Trump along these lines in the VP debate last night, and it's a question that many viewers had for you as well. Do you believe President Trump lost the election in 2020? 30 seconds here.
I believe that election had irregularities to it. I think they were investigated, certified the vote, and we're talking about 2024. And we're talking about how bad it's been since they've been in charge.
4 years later, they're still talking about
high costs. Every basic need we have has gotten worse since then.
But to clarify here in 15 seconds, do you believe he lost the election 4 years ago?
I do.
Ms. McCormick,
of course
you
he
changed
did.
parties from Republican to Democrat. That's been a large
Maybe
part
not fairly,
of your
but
campaign this year. Can voters
maybe
trust
without
that
help.
You'll be on board with your new
That's
party's
just the tinfoil
platform?
hat.
60 seconds to you on that question and your response to Mr. Braun there.
Absolutely. The party has been super supportive. I know Mr. Braun can relate to this as he switched parties as well. He was a Democrat for many years. And so for my party, what we're doing is showing what it looks like to have hope and optimism, to show the future and make sure we're focused on kids and families and communities, to fight for reproductive rights and freedoms, to make sure that kids have a great education and we have childcare and universal pre-K, and we have good paying jobs, and we uplift our unions because they're so incredibly important. But we also need to take care of our environment. So yes, the party and I are aligned to a lot of issues, and they have been very receptive, and I am proud to be a Democrat. But having said that, my campaign has been very bipartisan. We have a lot of Republicans who are supporting us, a lot of independents who are supporting us, and the message they're telling us is we can get behind your values. We do not want extremism. His lieutenant governor scares people to death because he goes around calling candidates, Jezebel spirits. And so people don't want that.
This is going to be the thing about Jezebel spirit.
So I think it's clear. This is about kitchen table issues. When I travel the state, they're worried about the economy. The federal government has been run by her party over the last 4 years, and we've got some of the worst economic results we've had ever. And when your game plan is to borrow and spend through the federal government and do it on the backs of your kids and grandkids, we need a better business plan.
Sure.
We don't want that to infiltrate here into Indiana.
And Ms. McCormick, another follow-up here, because you mentioned working in a bipartisan fashion. You were in charge of the Department of Education, as you referenced, for 4 years, clashing many times with Republicans in power on your plans for students. As a Democrat now, how will you enact your policies while working with the majority party, the supermajority at the State House. 30 seconds.
And Mr. Braun mentioned that, you know, my party has been in charge of the federal government for decades. And I will say the state here in Indiana that we're talking about today that is 47th in the nation in quality of life, 41st in the nation in educational attainment. You know, we can go on and on, and some of the statistics that are alarming have been under 20 years of one-party rule under Republicans. So let's talk about the state of Indiana. As far as when I was state superintendent of public instruction, I did an amazing job because I had an amazing team. I also served amazing school systems.
But 15 seconds here, exactly how would you work with the supermajority to enact some of those policies?
Yeah, and that was a big charge when I was here. They called us the Ellis Island of the State House because our doors were open to everybody to extend that olive branch. We helped on legislative items. We helped on fiscal and implementation items. We will continue to do that. My lieutenant governor served for 20 years, has a relationship with a lot of Republicans, and we'll take advantage of that.
Okay, we'll talk about that coming up as well. More topics to get to, Birchelle.
By next year, every state surrounding Indiana will have legalized marijuana in some form, bringing in some new tax revenue sources. Illinois and Michigan have brought in tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars. Ohio earned more than $11 million in its first week of sales, and Kentucky has brought in $27 million. That's just from applications for medical marijuana applications or licenses, rather. So now, many of our viewers had questions about marijuana legalization. So, Ms. McCormick, first to you. You support overall marijuana legalization. Some law enforcement officers, though, have raised concerns about legalizing the drug, especially when it comes to public safety. What steps would your office take to address those concerns? 60 seconds on the clock for you.
Absolutely. So 80% of the Hoosiers, I hear you, and it is time. We are on an island of our own, and every state around us has legalized and is taking advantage of this. And Hoosiers are using, whether medical or recreational, it's here. So it's time we take advantage. We rolled out our common sense cannabis plan that starts with a well-regulated industry with a commission that we would certainly bring law enforcement to the table to make sure we're doing this in a very thoughtful way. It's a lot of money. Low estimates, $177 million with tens, if not thousands of jobs. What a huge economic boost for the state of Indiana. It's time. So I hear concerns from law enforcement. We are willing to work with them. I appreciate everything they do. Their voice will be certainly at that table when we have our commission in order to get to medical first and then go into adult use.
And what would that partnership look like? How would you address what they're now concerned about, whether it's roadside safety or some of their traffic investigations? 15 seconds if you could.
Yeah, and we have to look at the arrest and those who are right now incarcerated. So making sure that they are part of that commission, making sure that their concerns are heard, and making sure that we can find some common ground. I mean, they will be a critical piece to make sure this is successful.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick. Mr. Braun, now to you. The last time you were on our debate stage, you signaled that you were open to medicinal marijuana, legalizing it in our state if a bill landed on your desk. So what would that bill need to include now for you to sign it into law? 60 seconds.
So that's going to be very simple. And she referred to the fact that law enforcement is kind of concerned about her approach. I'll be listening to them for sure. They'll have to put up with the consequences of it. I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I build a business having to look at things as they change. And by the way, when it comes to law enforcement, I'm the one here that's been endorsed by the FOP and the State Police Alliance, among many other sheriffs as well. That is critical. We are surrounded by 4 states currently. Many others have already done it. And to me, medical use of marijuana is something, yes, that we need to look at. I hear a lot of that from people across the board. And I will be open to doing what makes sense, not doing what is necessarily politically convenient to do. And again, I'll take a lot of cue from the folks that are already supporting me, law enforcement, that would have to put up with doing it the wrong way.
And just as a quick follow-up to that, so if you have the right resources, you're hearing from experts that they back recreational legalization, is that something you would also sign? 30 seconds.
That is something I'll consider. Medical marijuana is something I think that makes sense, and I'll listen to the legislature. I'll make sure that I get the ear of law enforcement and Hoosiers. Remember, I visit them every year, all 92 counties, and they can come visit me in my hometown, which I'll do when you elect me governor as well.
Thank you. We'll stick a bit with this topic here. Something that's somewhat been connected with marijuana in some cases is opioids. It certainly affected many Hoosiers, including one of our viewers, Angelo from Portage, and he asked this question here.
From the region.
Back in 2019, my family and I were at a loss when our father suddenly passed away of a drug overdose. So my question is, what is your plan on combating the opioid epidemic in Indiana?
Mr. Braun, I turn to you first on this one. What would you propose for Hoosiers like Angelo when it comes to the overdose epidemic that we're seeing?
Well, sadly, opioids, fentanyl, now which comes across our border due to open border policies, 100,000 lives lost annually. That is way too many across the country. We have our own instances, of course, here in our own state. I was down to visit the border a year and a half ago, and those policies that were working so well under the Trump administration, basically the Biden-Harris plan has been to open the borders. And of course, she has as her biggest issue as the border czar completely dropped the ball. I'd love to hear my opponent's opinion of how well that's worked. Until that is solved, it'll be like chasing your tail as states. But in the meantime, we'll have to do the best to fend it off. But open borders, cartels, Biden-Harris policies have given us that.
Ms. McCormick, I'll give you a moment just to respond to this. But first, Mr. Braun, as a follow-up, Angelo and others have suggested that legalizing marijuana could replace opioid use for some addicts, potentially saving lives. So what would your response be to a proposal like that? 30 seconds.
And to me, if that's part of medical marijuana and a therapeutic way to address those issues, I'm definitely going to be open to it, and we'll listen to it carefully. And that seems to make sense.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Ms. McCormick, let me turn to you first on the original topics. You've already advocated here for legalizing marijuana for Hoosiers, families like Angelo's. What other solutions do you have to address opioid overdoses? 60 seconds, please, for your response.
Yeah, first of all, my heart goes out to Angelo and his family. It is very, very difficult, and I've heard those type of stories as I've traveled all 92 counties, and it is in all 92 counties. So I appreciate the question. You know, it is a massive undertaking. Let's give credit where credit's due. Governor Holcomb made some good steps forward in this, in looking at trying to find some of those solutions, and I think there are some good steps, whether we look at test stripping or looking at more resources in regional areas where they need to go, empower our departments of health. We've had a lot of great ideas, but again, we have to have the people at the table with those ideas. As far as the borders goes, you know, it's really unfortunate that one of the last bipartisan border patrol bills that was put up that had a lot of money on it that some said was the most aggressive to control some of the illegal substances coming across the border. My opponent voted no on that bill, and it's unfortunate because it would have helped Indiana. It would have helped with the illegal immigration issue. It also would have helped with the drug issue.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick. And I see, Mr. Braun, that you got your hand raised here. We'll give you 30 seconds as a rebuttal.
So that bipartisan bill had 3 Republicans for it. And you know why? Because it would have legalized illegal crossings at 5,000 per day. Half of what the Biden administration was tolerating before, but way too many. And if you're okay with that, you're not getting to the root of the problem, and something's got to give there. Her party was responsible for it, and until we're going to cure this issue, it's going to have to be based upon a secured border.
Well, Mr. Braun and Ms. McCormick have both walked us right into our next topic here, which is immigration.
We've certainly seen a national discussion on immigration this year in the race for president, resulting in some fairly heated rhetoric. Indiana may have its own example of that in the city of Logansport, where a large population of immigrants have come here legally, many to bolster the workforce at places like Tyson Foods. But the city's mayor told us recently that's putting a strain on some systems like healthcare and schools in that area. Ms. McCormick, as governor, what resources would you direct to communities with quickly growing population? 60 seconds here.
Yeah, it's so interesting that Mr. Braun keeps referring to my party in D.C. I wasn't in D.C. I've never served in D.C. He is the gentleman who has been serving us in D.C. for a long time now. He is definitely an insider in Washington, D.C. And what did you get accomplished? I mean, obviously you voted against a very, very popular bipartisan bill. And a lot of people, the perception here from Hoosiers is you were playing politics. And that's unfortunate because we need solutions. Illegal immigration is a huge topic that we need solved at the federal level. Now, obviously, there are ways to do that, and as the governor, I will certainly cooperate with the federal level, regardless of who the president of the United States is, because I want Hoosiers to be safe, and we also need to address the issue. But as far as legal immigration goes, we embrace that. There are 6% of our population that are here in the workforce, bringing over $4 billion into our economy. Many of our communities are dependent upon immigrants who have come here legally and being very, very productive citizens. But as a responsible governor, I will make sure we get resources where they need to go.
Mr. Braun, same question to you here. How will you address the influx of legal migrants in some of our communities and resources that may need to come from the state? 60 seconds.
So legal immigration is something that you'll need more of it. And the reason we haven't gotten it is because you've got a porous border. Again, unless she wants to disavow everything her party stands for, that's what's been in the way of it. But this country was built upon immigration, legal immigration, not open borders. And that issue is right up there with the economy, and they're both bad, and they've both been put upon us by the Biden-Harris administration. So when we have legal immigration and it's in our own state, of course you support it. That's what we need more of. What we need less of is what my opponent and her party have given us in the first place, which is open doors, and that was working well before Biden and Harris got elected. Now all states are border states, and we're putting up with the complications of it.
Let's talk about your running mates here. This came up earlier in the debate. Mr. Braun, your running mate, Micah Beckwith, chosen by party delegates, has raised a number of hot-button issues throughout the campaigning, including a call to revisit childhood vaccine requirements and some comments about your opponents that Ms. McCormick referenced earlier. You've told me that you prefer the campaign focus on kitchen table issues. How would he impact your administration? And if elected, what role would your LG play in the Braun administration? 1 minute here on this.
So you can pick out a few things, but he is completely on board with controlling high health care costs. And you're going to have an entrepreneurial governor in me that no one has tackled that before. When it comes to balancing education, getting that right, getting folks that need to go to college, need a skills-based education. You look at the other issues. We've talked about some: high utility costs, water, affordable housing, rural broadband, child care. Who do you think is going to get that done with a supermajority? And I agree, we have become complacent over 20 years. Mitch Daniels came, and it was run by the other side of the aisle, and it was a state in the red financially. That's what happened after 16 years of Democrats running our state. But if you want someone who's a problem solver, of all Republicans got more done on health care, education, and agriculture than any other senator, and can do that in just 6 years, pay attention to that.
To clarify here in 15 seconds, you said you can pick out some things. Are there things he has said that you wish he hadn't said?
There are going to be things that you can pick out on anybody wishing they haven't said it.
And what are they?
I'm going to say, I'm not going to itemize them, but he has been mostly in line with faith, family, community, freedom, and opportunity, and Hoosiers are hearing that.
Ms. McCormick, your running mate Terry Gooden has gone against some of the traditional Democratic Party positions in the past on both abortion and marriage equality. And
yeah, Ron does not like his.
How do you assure those who vote for you that you'll deliver on those issues? And what role will your LG play in your administration if elected? A minute for you on that question as well.
Yeah, my LG isn't a problem. The entire party is behind him. He's got bipartisan support.
Yeah, mostly in line, yeah.
He is well received.
Exactly.
I picked him because of his character, because he is competent and his commitment to service. I have no worries about Terry Gooden, nor does the state of Indiana. It also comes to remind us that that person is a heartbeat away from being the governor of Indiana. And let's talk about the lieutenant governor on the other candidate on the other side. He has proclaimed to be a white Christian nationalist. He is a book banner. He is comparing vaccines to rape at a time where women are fighting for our reproductive freedoms. He also is name calling. I mean, really? To call people Jezebel spirits that we're running for governor? I am a 20-year public servant. I'm a mom. I'm a farm family. I am committed to Hoosiers, and that's the best he can give. And again, it's about an apology, and it also is about owning up. I mean, until we have that, it's ridiculous. He's dangerous.
Mr. Braun, 30 seconds if you wish for a rebuttal or if you wish for
So when you're focusing on a lieutenant governor, that means you're shaky on what your own plans are going to be. Obviously, in this state, a governor is going to call the shots. And if you want a governor that has now changed policy from what you were just before, or you want a strong, steady hand that's proven you can get things done on the biggest stage, coming in to fix our issues, when you focus on that, that means you're afraid you don't have enough to offer Hoosiers. They're going to address kitchen table issues.
Okay, we've got 15 seconds.
I'm not afraid to lead, because I know leading is about addressing kitchen table issues, about the economy. But I also know, too, and I'm crystal clear, it's about character. We need someone at the top of that ticket who will represent us well at the national level, and who will also have a running mate who will serve us well.
Real quick, top of the ticket, that's me. If you
have not
take
apologized,
on my
sir.
Character,
Jezebel spirit.
Oh, he hurt my feelings.
That knows me, and that's going to be a hard case to make.
We've got to leave it there because we do have a number of kitchen table.
She's losing her mind.
So for our next question,
from Micah, just saying that.
To Jessica
Imagine if
Costello.
she
She's from our station,
is governor.
WEHT, out in Evansville.
Many of Indiana's favorite roads feel like they're constantly under construction or are in disrepair. At the same time, INDOT is raising flags that its revenue sources could fall short in the coming years as gas tax revenues may decline. So what is your plan to make sure the state's roads are maintained and improved?
Oversight on INDOT, step one.
First to you, Ms. McCormick. What is your plan for road infrastructure here in Indiana? And 60 seconds, please, for your response.
Yeah, so the infrastructure issue is beyond roads, and I think we're all aware of that. And everything in this is expensive, whether it's connectivity with broadband, whether it's our bridges, whether it's our watershed dams, whether it's our sewers, whether it's our water pipes. The list goes on. And I do think under 20 years of a Republican supermajority one-party rule, it has gotten away from us, and it is incredibly expensive. Do I think this is going to be solved overnight? Heavens no, because we just got a report that the price tag is so much more than our revenue will be. So we've got to have a plan in order to prioritize. I know I'm hearing a lot about US 30, which I support. US 31 has needs. What doesn't have a need is a mid-state corridor. But there are just a lot of road issues that are coming up that we do need to address with a plan, with the right people at the table. It's critical to our economic development. My opponent voted against the infrastructure bill that brought Indiana over $6 billion in that infrastructure space.
That's part of the inflation.
And that's really unfortunate, because the work that we see going on now was a result of that, and we've got a lot more to do.
Ms. McCormick, thank you. And you made mention there of that $2.4 billion shortfall estimated for NDOT. So, Mr. Braun, I turn the question now to you. What's your plan to improve Indiana roadways? 60 seconds.
This is going to be an easy one, because I think this election is going to be about who Hoosiers think have a track record and a steady hand and a record of leadership. She was in government for a short period of time, and we were in the 35th ranking when that was her job. I went to the state legislature because a lot of Indiana doesn't have the infrastructure it needs, and I think the question is on roads and bridges. Well, first year I was there, weighed in on it, and was there just 3 years when was asked to co-author that bill. Most legislators that get there aren't being asked to do that unless they know something about the subject matter. I come from a part of the state that has suffered from a lack of infrastructure. I went there to improve upon it, did an entrepreneurial bill with skin in the game that will help local areas actually weigh in on their own destiny. I've heard nothing like that out of her.
Mr. Braun, thank you. 15 seconds if you'd like for a rebuttal.
Sure. I think what he's referring to is the plan that he came up with where they kept continuing to raise our gas taxes, and that is simply not sustainable. We need to look at other ways to look at more sustainable dollars that would come in for that infrastructure. The way they tried it and the way they did it simply didn't work, but boy, we felt it at the gas pumps and increases.
Dude, you would not get rid of the gas tax.
We recently learned that Indiana hospitals and insurance providers are being sued, accused of ignoring overpaid Medicaid claims. Now, the lawsuit says that the state cost the state $700 million. Ms. McCormick, will you take steps to get that money back for Hoosiers? And what would you do about this issue?
Get them, Rokita.
Yeah, I've been on the phone to a lot of families who are quite upset because their children or adults are not receiving the services that they don't only need, but they deserve. And it was so sudden for many of them. Also, also, there is such a waiting list to get those services. Many of them had family caregivers that are no longer allowed to do that or can do that if they take a massive cut. A third of Indiana is on Medicaid. That's massive. And so we have a lot of questions about what exactly happened. And we've heard a lot of stories, but I will tell you, having been in charge of a state agency over half of the state's budget, I would have had some answers if I would have had a shortfall or misappropriated money to that degree. So we have a lot of work to do in Medicaid. We're going to have to take some steps toward fixing it. But a lot of those services are immediate and they are in need.
Mr. Braun, you mentioned healthcare earlier. Same question to you here. 60 seconds. What would you do about this problem?
So Medicaid, obviously a cost-sharing plan that we have for healthcare for those that can't afford it. Again, broken in general, because it ends up costing too much. And to make sure that we're going to be able to afford our share of it, it's going to take someone that has taken on healthcare in the past. Just because you run an agency, that doesn't mean you can translate that into doing something that will be a lot more complicated than any other aspect of state government. In my own business 16 years ago, I took on high healthcare costs. All I can tell you, entrepreneurially, we cut costs by over 50% through every wellness and prevention tool at it, have not had premium increases in 16 years. No one else has done that. Our own state needs to start embracing transparency and competition to make sure our costs of health care are lower. That is how we start lowering Medicaid costs and our share of it.
I want to address the comment
very
about
briefly. We've got to move on to closing statements.
About running an agency. The agency was the Department of Education, and if we get better education, we get higher wages, and we will fix this Medicaid issue.
Okay, we have reached the final moments here of our debate, so we will move now to our closing statements tonight.
We start first with you, Ms. McCormick. 30 seconds.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you to both of you, to Dan Bierschel, thank you very much, to Fox. Mr. Braun, thank you for agreeing to be here. To the Hoosiers who are listening, thank you for being informed, and please go inform others. I am Jennifer McCormick. I'm a fifth-generation farm family. I understand the importance of having a governor who will fight for our freedoms, particularly reproductive freedoms and academic freedoms, and respect parental rights. I promise you, when I become your governor, I will fight for you and make Indiana proud. I welcome all, and I approve it, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Now to you, 30 seconds.
It's going to be very clear. My wife and I decided to move back to our hometown long ago. She started her own business. I did shortly after that. 3 of our 4 kids run it now. That's the American dream. Turn the lights on in the morning, off in the evening, and everything in between. I served on the biggest stage here as your U.S. Senator, and thank you for getting me there. The opportunities here at home are so great, and I'm one that solves problems, knows how to get it done. I want to take Hoosier families to a place they've never been before.
Senator Braun, Dr. McCormick, thank you both, and thank you at home for watching tonight. Good night.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. That was... I felt like my ears were getting waterboarded. Next Star Media Group. All right, so have some time left on this thing. So real quick, first off, Braun needs to wear a suit. This whole like Steve Jobs blue button up and khakis and everything, it's not working for me. I have talked to Braun a couple of times, and yeah, awful closing statements. And I'll tell you what, he's much more energetic in person. But, like, I understand that he needs to make sure that he's toned down for the normies and everything. But let's go back to what he was saying, what was going on, too. One of the funny things was that McCormick said, is like, I'm the only one that's been pregnant up here. It's like, I don't know who. It's like, are you saying men can't get pregnant? You know, that's the running thing. And then the cost of housing. He didn't hit on the point about how all the illegals or how these refugees are coming in here through backdoor means. And I can tell you, like, Exodus Refugee, they're one of the people that bring in a lot of these people, and they're getting paid, they're getting $400 a month, and they're getting furnished apartments too. So, and that money is getting supplied from the taxpayers, from the government. So there was that. I wish he would have brought that up more. the education, the teacher pay. So I did a little bit of searching while they were talking. I was kind of going in and out a couple of times. So I have already done some research on this, and I wanted to compare it because I'm originally from Chicago, and I know how expensive everything is too. And I follow Illinois policy, which is, it's something you should follow on Instagram. So I was comparing the teacher pay average, average pay for teachers $35.95, and in Chicago. In Indianapolis, $33. The cost of living comparison, though, from Indianapolis to Chicago is 21.6 higher without rent. Rent prices are 67% higher. It's like, that's crazy to me. Absolutely bananas. So how are you going to fluff up the pay? Plus, here is my opinion on this, seeing as how I have talked to a bunch of teachers. And this is just my opinion. Ask them. It's not so much the pay, even though I agree they should get paid more. It's the children. It's the people that they're teaching, that things are completely out of control. I mean, you saw over in Perry Township or Franklin Township, some guy got his head bashed in by a student, and now obviously the kid is getting charged for it. But like, this stuff is very common. One of the teachers was telling me how TVs are getting broken from some of these autistic children. Tablets are missing, things are getting broken, and it's just, you're stressing the crap out of teachers, and a lot of it is from these refugees or illegals, however you want to say it, from these migrants. And what are you supposed to do with all of that? You're going to need, right off the bat, you need 2 teachers per classroom, because you have to maintain some of these children who aren't getting disciplined at home. And really, there needs to be some kind of, you guys are going to hate this or love it. There's no gray area. We need to start telling the parents to start doing their job. Bring on a shaming campaign. I don't care. Hey, Democrats, clip that. All right? We need to start making parents accountable for their children, and stop telling, and the teachers are not there to raise your children. They are there to teach. That's what they're there for. So stop getting mad at the teachers, start getting mad at yourself, and just admit that you're a bad parent and fix it. Bam, problem solved. Democrats, clip that. I don't even care. It's my opinion. That's how I feel. Utilities, we need to go nuclear. We need clean coal, and you need to lift some of the regulations. You need competition. That's the only way that you'll be able to decrease utility prices, because you're going to want, hey, instead of Citizens, I can go over there, and I can get it for a quarter of the price, a half of the price. And then now Citizens is going to be forced to lower some of theirs so they get more people. It's a giant monopoly, and you have all these big corporations snatching up the smaller ones. And I'll give you an example, too. In Indianapolis, they're going to start replacing lead pipes. Well, back in 2022, when this bill got signed, was around the same time that Citizens Energy also said, oh, we're going to have to start raising rates. Convenient timing, am I right? It's saying, oh, we're going to replace this stuff for free. It's really not free. So, also, the quality of life thing is totally fake. I remember looking this up not that long ago. It was, here we go. Look at this stuff right here. Bam. State ranks 46 for natural environment and 43rd for social environment, for a combined score that gives Indiana the 3rd worst quality of life in the U.S. It is a subjective score, but Illinois is 47th. Eat it, Illinois. But then the U.S. and World Report also ranks Indiana 32nd for healthcare quality and 35th for education. Don't trust any of that stuff. And this is what Braun should have been on top of, but he is afraid. I am convinced he's afraid to go into the deep waters of some of these niche things, of saying, it's like, if McCormick's going to throw this out, then you need to throw this out, and you need to be prepared for it. And I don't know if he is... Hey, good to see you, Pam. So I personally think that, like, this stuff doesn't matter, and I really encourage people to look it up. It's like, well, who made that ranking? Was it from some biased media person? Because we know they're all over the place. And then, what was the other one? Yeah, first off, that link that I put up there, Yeah, for sure. Lake County for sure. Well, I'm from the region. I lived in Cherville for a long time. And you have so many of these Illinois people moving to Indiana, but then working in Chicago. I actually did the same thing. Well, not in Chicago, but in Madison. But like, people are going to say, well, they need to be paying their fair share. Well, they are. I had to pay Illinois taxes on top of my salary, not salary, but when I was paid per hour. And then I still got paid. I still had to pay taxes for Indiana. But yeah, Lake County is a problem. And I wanted to see these quality of, Crown Point. Well, that was when I moved out of the region in Cherville. It was 2005, and that's when I was working in Gary, Indiana. And man, can I tell you some stories about Gary, Indiana? Since I worked there for 2 years. And then let's not forget that there was a report that came out on the reading and writing of how well the children are doing. And you know what the number one school was for that? It was a private school in Gary, Indiana, because they're more focused on making sure the kids know what they're doing. And, I'm not here to bash public schools because obviously I am a product of public schools, but we need to focus on what is best for the children. What's going to get them furthest in life? It's really that simple. Is it charter schools? Is it private schools? Is it public schools? Who knows? It's just different strokes for different folks. Some people aren't going to be learning the same way, and that's what we need to focus on for sure. And the property tax thing is mighty interesting too, because everybody keeps, and I knew this was going to happen back in the lieutenant governor's debate with Terry Gooden and whatever the libertarian person is, because Terry Gooden kept saying, it's like, Republicans are the real defunders of the police, because if you get rid of property taxes, they won't have any money. You're just making sure that there are certain corporations or departments that they're going to keep getting the same money. Obviously, IMPD, I'm just going to say Marion County, but IMPD, the Sheriff's Office, Prosecutor's Office, EMS, that kind of stuff, their budget can't be touched. There's other budgets that can be touched. And plus, we need oversight on some of this stuff. For people in Carmel, how much did that testicle statue cost you? Huh? How many millions of dollars are these statues or pickleball courts or whatever? Or how much are they costing you? Probably so much. And what are you getting out of it? Still broken roads. And I can tell you right now, the gas taxes, Democrats will never get rid of the gas tax, because I watch the Indianapolis City Council meetings. When DPW comes out with their budget or their plan of how they're going to do some kind of repair, the very first thing they bring up is gas tax, and they're happy about it. They goon off of it. They're like, oh man, we're going to be getting so much money off of this stuff. We need it. So don't ever expect the Democrats, and I was surprised McCormick said that, but I'm much more down the rabbit hole of all this stuff. And that bipartisan bill, that border bill, guess what? That would send way more money to Ukraine. That's why it was such a bad bill. That's why people like Braun voted against it. There were 3 Republicans that voted for it. Yeah, because they're neocons and war hawks. They're part of the Uniparty. The deep state, the Uniparty and the deep state are the same, just to let you remind you. And then the immigrants, when they're, and this is always going to be a talking point with Democrats or liberals about, we were built on it. Immigrants built this country. Well, tell you what, the people that came to this country built this country out of nothing. And they fought, and they survived, and they died. The immigrants that are coming here now, exactly. The Border Patrol didn't even support that bill. The immigrants that are coming now, what do they want? They want free money, they want free education, they want free health care, and they want free jobs. That's what they're coming from here for. They say, oh, America, this... Grab the brass ring. These are the places. It's like the Oz, Wizard of Oz, when you're going into the castle or whatever. I know I've got a whole bunch of things, and I need to scoot here in a little bit. But they're saying here's like, this is the best place to go because we're getting all these things. That's why all these refugees, all these migrants are coming here. It's because they want, the Democrats want them here so they can change the vote. That's why they're going to rural areas. They know places like Indianapolis, the region, Fort Wayne, Bloomington, they're covered. Places like even Terre Haute, or that's why they're going to places like Peru, going to Brazil, not the country, Indiana. They want those places filled up so they can turn these rural areas more blue. That is the whole point of it. But they are a strain on the system. Wayne Township lost their EMS because of it. They almost lost their fire department. They almost became the monopoly of Indianapolis Fire Department. And a part of the reason why is because of the healthcare system. Yeah, create instability, totally stress the whole system. Exactly, Pam. And so 25 to 45%, I forgot what the number is this Wayne Township had to pay because the people that were going in there had no insurance. So they have no way of paying the hospitals, which goes into the Medicaid thing. Hospitals know that, and just like colleges and hospitals know they will be getting money through Medicaid, right? Same thing with colleges. They know they will be getting money from federal funding. So what do? They bump it up. They say, hey, guess what? That diaper that normally costs 25 cents, yeah, that's like $10 now. Hey, that box of orange juice, that's a $25 box of orange juice. Thank you, taxpayers. And that's what happens. That's why hopefully Rokita will be able to investigate these hospitals of why they were overcharging everything and really stick it to them too. Shame them. Call out the people that are running them. Shame them. Put them on milk cartons. Put them on billboards. We must shame these people into oblivion. Every time they go to the grocery store, we should point them and say, you try stealing my money and you're not going to get away with it. Put them in jail. I don't care. There needs to be consequences, and I'm the guy to do it. Same thing with INDOT, by the way. I want an oversight on INDOT since they were talking about that and the cost of everything, and a lot of it is because of the unions. And they bring in these immigrants and these refugees, and they put them in union jobs, and they go, oh, King whoever, you gave me this job. And then your union boss, like right now you see over at the dock people who's making $1 million a year, who has this giant castle, 5-car garage filled with Bentleys. True, look it up. They're going to bring these people in for cheap labor while they're just making all that money. And they're saying, well, guess what? We need all these workers. And then they start inflating the numbers. That 5-cent nail now becomes a $5 nail. And guess what? Now we need 20,000 more of them. And who pockets it? The unions. Whoever. Look at the campaign reports. I'll give you a perfect example. Hogsett got $25,000 from TWG Development. Go on Twitter and look up TWG Development and Hogsett. Look at all the projects that are happening in Marion County, and they're all because everybody has a price, except for yours truly. I don't have a price. I'm just a sweet and cute little guy. And we can't forget that these people need to be held accountable. Call them out. Every chance that you get, go on social media, shame them. That's what they need. The more shaming they get, the more of the rumor that keeps going on, the less likely they will do this again. The campaign reports, that's where you need to start. So yeah, is that all I got? I was making some notes about it. Yeah, and Braun needs to wear a suit. And hey, I posted this up on Twitter a while ago. If you look at McCormick's her cover page, look at her now, totally getting catfished. And all the problem is these coomers get all wound up and just like, oh, look at this fine-looking lady. Of course I'm just going to vote for her because she's a woman, which is totally dumb. Everything needs to be done through a meritocracy. We used to be a proper country where we said, hey, you did really well on this. Look at my record. Look at what I'm fighting for. Hey, do you have a plan? Yeah, here it is. And then when they start criticizing it, they try poking holes in it, be like, hey, that's fine. We're going to get this covered. And everybody needs to remember, no matter what, whether it's in politics, whether it's in a plan, whether it's in life, nothing's perfect. Everything's going to get effed up a little bit. And that's okay, as long as we fix it. Because McCormick was knocking Braun's property tax plan, calling it 2.0. Yeah, because we found some holes in it. And guess what? A great leader will fix that. They recognize it, and they fixed it, and they made it better. Now, what I'm really looking forward to is tomorrow night, because I will be doing this again. Any of you newcomers out there, I will be doing this tonight again, because Rainwater is yeah. I wonder how many people were gooning over that no gas oven. She should have had mittens on. That's what she should have had, some protect her hands for how hot it is. But I'm going to be doing it again tomorrow because Donald Rainwater will be on the floor, folks. That's what I'm excited about. There was a mock debate with Rob Kendall. I encourage you to go and see it. It was at 11 o'clock today on WIBC. Just go to their YouTube and the Rob and Casey show at the 11 o'clock, which would be like an hour before the show ends. There was a mock debate with Rob and Rainwater. And really, it was it was very friendly. I mean, Rob was poking holes in everything, but that's how everything should be done. When you're looking at a major project, when you're looking at the thing, how can this be weaponized? Every bill that I would put out there, every time I see it, I would be thinking to myself, who will weaponize it and how will they weaponize it? Listen, the road to hell is built on great intentions, right? And we have to remember that this world is ruled by psychopaths, and people like me, people like you, the normies, we're not psychopaths, but you do need to send a maniac in to stop a maniac. Karina. So yeah, I think that's all I got. If any of you are interested, 9 o'clock, the meet and greet at Western Bowl. I'll be there. We can talk about politics. We can talk about weather. If you want to go bowling, because don't forget, bowling is fun, come and see me. And if you got any questions, hey, if you're in District 97, go check out my website, whitmerforindy.com. It's FOR or the number 4. Also, I did post a link up there at the closer to the top, whitmerforindy.com, whitmerforindy.com/420. Me and the boys had a little bit of a think tank idea. If we were to legalize weed, what kind of roadblocks could we put in there so it wouldn't get completely out of control? Because if I remember right, Ohio now legalized weed, but the tax money is going to be going to the police. How funny is that? I mean, that's how this whole thing got started too. Like that's so clever. It's so witty. So if you have any ideas, go to my Facebook. I think it's I never actually remember what my Facebook is, but let me make sure. I'm just going to post a link on there too. I'm going to post the link in the chat. It is Facebook.com/WhitmerHouse97, like Gretchen Whitmer, my auntie, allegedly. And then also whitmerforindy.com. Don't forget about that. I'll put the link in the chat. But if you got any questions, if you disagree with me, give me a call, give me an email. This is what I've been telling everybody since day one, since I signed up to run for state representative. Let's just talk about it. That's all we have to do. I put this out in a video last week. Senator J.D. Ford, I had beef with for a little bit. I still sort of do, but it's much better now. But we agreed that like 90% of the topics that people complain about isn't really a big thing. There's only like 2 or 3 things that we don't agree with. Everything else we kind of agree with. It's just the approach to it. It's how we're getting there. We all have a problem with those things, but how do we fix it? Obviously, stop putting so much money into it. If you're putting money into something and it's not having some kind of net neutral or net positive, find out why, and then fix it. And then if it's still not, maybe it's time to scrap that plan and move on to something else. So yeah. Don't forget tomorrow though. I'll put a link in the chat. Or actually, I'll check me out at Witty Reviews on Twitter. And obviously, Twitter is kind of losing their mind right now, which I think is awesome. Rob Kendall, obviously. I'll put that in the chat too. Bam. Okay, so I'm going to stop the stream because I need to go to the bathroom, and then I need to head over to the bowling alley. So